Hey everyone, and welcome to my first ever YouTube video. So, in case you couldn't tell, I'm a fan of video games, and pretty much all the content I make from now on, I'll probably make it about video games. So, I suppose to introduce you all to myself, I thought it might be fun to talk about what my favorite video games are from each year I was alive. I'll do my best to explain why the game is special to me and why I like it so much. So, I guess I should clarify, these are all going by the original release dates, and remakes don't count. Remasters are fine though, they're close enough to the original release to count. I'll also be saying some of my honorable mentions for each of the spot. Now there is going to be a lot of games I talk about in this list, so if there's something about a game I don't really mention or go into detail for, I apologize for that. Maybe I could talk about it in a future video and go more into details. So with that, let's get started with 2005, where my favorite game is Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is the type of game I wouldn't exactly say aged poorly, but there is something about it that just feels dated, especially because of how popular other open world games are right now, and they're all pretty much inspired by Shadow of the Colossus. I know that's a weird way to start a section praising a game, but I don't think any of these are downsides. If anything, they're strengths. Movement is clunky and restrictive, but there's just a lot of fun that can be found in that, because the game's designed around it. If you could just Rivali scale on top of a Colossus, the game wouldn't be fun. Your restrictions were all accounted for in boss battles, and the way you get around them to win is how the game becomes so much fun. It's easy to find flaws in the game, but hard to find a flaw that really brings it down. For this year, the honorable mentions are Resident Evil 4, Devil May Cry 3, and Mario Kart DS. 2005 was a good year for video games. Next up, 2006, and Okami, no question about it. I love this game. The best part of this game would probably have to be the sense of adventure. There's so much to find and see, and every puzzle in this game is so well made. I am very dumb when it comes to puzzles and games, and I barely even had to search anything up. I did search some things up, but the combat's absolutely amazing too, way better than it has any right to be for a game like this. It's not on the same level as something like Devil May Cry, but that's perfectly fine, because at that point the combat might overshadow everything else. The story does tend to go all over the place, and it has a lot of filler at times, but it's worth it given the high points, and the arcs each characters go through to improve themselves is really, really amazing. My biggest gripe with this game would probably be Isun though, like just the character of Isun. He's an annoying tutorial character who doesn't shut up, which is bad on its own, but he also single-handedly raised the age rating of this relatively wholesome game with lame, unfunny pervert jokes that you get in like any anime. What a bad character. If I saw him in real life, I would crush his bones and throw him into a wood chipper. Honorable mention for 2006 goes to New Super Mario Bros. On that note, let's move on to 2007. This was a challenge. It's almost comical how many video games released this year that were amazing. Super Mario Galaxy, Mass Effect, Portal, Halo 3, Bioshock, TF2. Definitely better than 2005 in terms of video game releases. Maybe not general quality of living, but definitely video game releases. In the end, I think I'm going to have to pick Mass Effect. If you ask me, Mass Effect is peak science fiction. I don't think I can begin to describe how amazing the world building in this series is. The politics and standard of living for everybody is just explored so well and so fleshed out. Sure, something like Star Wars or Ender's Game probably does have just as much world building, but it's mostly supplemental material and not really explored like it is in Mass Effect. I think it's a testament to the medium of video games that this can contain just as much information as this. It's just impressive is what I'm saying. The character writing matches the strength of the world building, and it's always clear what everyone's motivations are. Sounds like a low bar, but believe me, there are a lot of games, especially RPGs, which absolutely fail at that task. I do think Mass Effect's combat is pretty bland though. I don't particularly like shooters that are more cover-based, and some of the shooting sections are so unbelievably boring and slow, they don't get all that better in 2 or 3 either. At least it tries, I guess. It's definitely worth it given the game it's attached to. I had a pretty big backlog when I first played the original Mass Effect, and I rushed through it way too much. Someday I really want to replay it in the Legendary Edition, and I know I'll have a lot of fun with it. For 2008, let's take a break from all these serious action-heavy single-player games, because my game of the year 2008 is Mario Kart Wii. You know, it really is incredible how universal the appeal of Mario Kart is, and I absolutely think Mario Kart Wii is the best one. The copy I had as a kid unfortunately broke, but I still play it quite a bit at friends' house or at this one video game themed restaurant I like to go to. It's always so much fun. That's really all there is to this one. It's fun. Do I even need to explain why I like Mario Kart Wii? It's like explaining why you like World Peace. Everything about this game is so perfectly designed to play with friends, and it's so well known, it's hard to find someone who hasn't played it. I'm super glad this game still holds up today, and all the popularity it gets is deserved. My main is Donkey Kong, by the way, even though there is a certain person in my life who likes to make fun of me for it, because they do not understand my love for Donkey Kong. Honorable mentions this year would be another game I played relentlessly as a kid, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and then a game I never played as a kid, but is still a classic, Street Fighter IV. That brings us to 2009. Another great year for video games, and really there's only one pick that actually makes sense for me at least though, Minecraft. What is there even to say? If you and someone else have a Minecraft world together, you're basically bound together for life. On its own, this game isn't really much. I can honestly understand why there are lots of people who find it boring. But once you find the community and you have some friends to play it with, that's when you truly understand it. It's strange. A lot of lifetime fans of the game probably did not enjoy their first night all that much, but once they used it to connect with people and they found the community, that's where their love really started, and it's unique in terms of video games in that way. Minecraft's a thing that can and will shape any childhood, and it's amazing. It's a classic. Honorable mentions to Assassin's Creed 2, Angry Birds, Plants vs. Zombies, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Can you tell I'm a zoomer? Anyways, for 2010, I considered putting Red Dead Redemption and Mass Effect 2 on here, but I just had to give it to Xenoblade Chronicles. The thing about Xenoblade is that when you think about it, it's not really unique. Sure, it does some new things, but a lot of its mechanics are the same as in other JRPGs with a little bit of a difference to it. That's not really a flaw against Xenoblade specifically. Most JRPGs are like that in the sense, because it's the stories that change between them. But despite all this, unique is absolutely a word I'd use to describe this game. It's hard to describe what exactly this game has that's new mechanics-wise, but if you played it, you know the amount of character and passion it has in it is unmatched, and you will get addicted to playing it. It's the kind of game that becomes your life for the next few weeks. And the fact that this game has characters who are constantly yelling their attack names in battles, and it's not that annoying, is one of the greatest accomplishments in video game history. How did they do that? You know what I haven't had on here yet? A fighting game. Despite me being a very casual enjoyer of them, fighting games are one of my favorite genres ever. And in 2011, we got Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is definitely one of my favorites. And hey, I guess Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 also released in 2011. You guys, this game is so much fun. The way the characters feel so fluid and it's so easy to do crazy shit with them is just incredible, and I never get tired of this game. Each character is so distinct, which is really impressive when there's like 50 of them. And let me just say, the roster for this game is perfect. Easily my favorite roster in any video game ever. Doesn't go too out there and try to include every big face and iconic hero, which would be a really unrealistic goal for a game, and it leans more on the principle of representation. Certain lesser-known characters are there to represent aspects of their universe, like how MODOK or Taskmaster represent the weird villains, Sea Viper represents Capcom's newer fighting games, or Nathan Spencer represents those edgy 2000s Capcom games no one likes. And the way they're in this game just makes them seem cool. And it cleverly adds in those characters while also having the big faces that are necessary for a game like this. It's just really cool to me how they do that, and it's a model I think most crossovers should follow. It's a miracle this game exists, and a miracle it's so good. This game could have easily sold on premise and legacy alone. Next up, we have 2012, and not the greatest year for video games, but still some of them were pretty cool. My pick for my own personal game of the year would have to be Yakuza V. I'm a pretty big fan of the Yakuza series, and so I'm surprised I never got to talk about them yet, but I guess it's better late than never. Looking back on this game, what immediately stands out is the sheer amount of things you can do. You can go hunting, play pool, have dance battles, play baseball, sorta, and it's all in a game about the Yakuza of all things. It's impressive how much this game has, but still, it is a little bit clunky in bringing it all together. Like how Tatsuo Shinada's chapters were the best in my opinion, but when it gets connected to the rest of the stories, he just kinda gets lost in the shuffle, and I don't really like how his story was resolved. If we look at each story individual though, they're all amazing when focusing on the journey of one character. I really do admire how this series isn't that interested in having a status quo, and the lives of characters change all the time. It's interesting to see, and not a lot of games did it. May or may not have created this game, by the way. Honorable mentions are Mass Effect 3 and Fire Emblem Awakening. For 2013, my pick is going to be Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Metal Gear is another series I really love, but I haven't been able to talk about it yet because, to be completely honest, most of the good games in this series are older than me. I'm too young for this, but I'm glad I'm able to talk about it now. Right off the bat, the combat in this game is so amazing, and it's easily the best part of the game. It's satisfying enough to make you feel like you're actually doing something while giving you enough of a challenge. Really, it's pretty much perfect. Honestly, maybe even the best combat in any game ever. The story doesn't really reach the emotional heights of other Metal Gear games at times, but it's still absolutely incredible. I could go on and on about how well written the villains are. Senator Armstrong is definitely one of the greatest villains in video game history, and is a perfect critique of fascism and conservatism in the American government. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance really earns its place as one of the most popular games of all time. Okay, maybe it's a stretch to call it that popular, but it is really popular and it does deserve it. With 2014, we are once again moving away from the single-player games, because my pick is Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Not the 3DS version, because confession time, I still haven't played that. Anyways, after Ultimate release, this game has definitely been forgotten in a way, but that does not make it boring. A lot of things this game has done have been done better in Ultimate, and Ultimate probably is the better game, but that doesn't change how much passion was put into this one. The character picks in this game range from meh, such as Palutena, Rosalina, or Bowser Jr., to holy shit, how hasn't this character been in here before, like Duck Hunt Villager and Little Mac. And some of the picks are the most interesting in the series. The single-player content isn't as good as Brawl or even Ultimate, but still, it's just so much fun, and I spent hours playing this game on my own. I could go on and on about how this game is still relevant after Ultimate's release, but I'll save that for now to save time. Multiplayer is just as fun, even if it isn't as good as Ultimate. Damn, I've been mentioning Ultimate a lot here. Anyways, as a kid, I was hyped for this game like nothing that came before it, and it was so worth it. Ultimate won't be Game of Year for 2018, by the way, so I wasn't foreshadowing anything, no spoilers. So I've never really been the biggest fan of replaying games. If there are details I missed the first time, then sure, but normally it isn't my favorite thing to do when I can just play newer games. That said, I've played Undertale 8 times. You ever just find a game that's a perfect representation of your feelings, sense of humor, and taste during a special point in your life? For me, that's Undertale. This game is perfect at knowing the player. It just seems to know you and plays with that to have a conversation with you. The game feels like a person you love and want to make happy, but like with the reset button. You reset and do everything right and give yourself a perfect relationship with this person, but that's not enough for you. You take everything for granted. You just want to know everything with this person, every single aspect. You need everything. And in the end, you do things you regret to get this goal and wonder if it'll ever be the same. It takes a genius to make a game that knows you so well. And there's a reason I didn't find this boring to replay at all. Honorable mention to Super Mario Maker. Don't have any weird convoluted metaphors for that, but I'm sure I could come up with one if I tried. Well, that was a lot, but I'm sure 2016 will be lighter, right? And nope, it's Persona 5. I'm actually on my first playthrough of this because I've put off playing it a lot, and there's something so endearing about it. I'm someone who is about to be moving away from my teenage years soon, and I think I play this game at the perfect point in my life because it feels like a celebration of all those years. Everything's so overly dramatized and even edgy at times, but that's all part of being a teenager, and it's all here. I never played anything that feels like a celebration for me. It's wild. The game does have its flaws. Pacing can be weird at times, and I've never really found palaces all that fun. Also, some things are uncomfortable. But really, it's a very special game. Honorable mentions this year are Uncharted 4 and Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. So, 2017, huh? One of the biggest years for video games ever, and so many games which are some of my favorites released this year. This is gonna be hard to pick. Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Resident Evil 7, Sonic Mania, Cuphead. Wait, actually, it's easy, it's Cuphead. Yeah, so Cuphead is actually my favorite game of all time, fun fact. It's incredible that this game is even good in the slightest. It easily could have become popular and sold well just with its visuals. But no, they just had to make it one of the most polished and balanced games of all time. This game is hard, sure, but it never feels unfair. You obviously die a lot, but it feels more like a game where you just happen to die a lot to overcome an obstacle. It's hard to describe why I feel like this game is so perfect, and I know that's strange. I can't give more commentary on my absolute favorite game of all time, but I think the experience of this game just speaks for itself, and it's special in that regard. And by the way, played this game 4 times. So throughout most of my life, I've pretty much been exclusively playing Nintendo consoles. Later, I began to have an appreciation for other companies' games. I bought myself a PS2, got an Xbox 360 used from a family friend, then got myself a PS4. The one game that really got me to appreciate Sony's style of games is the 2018 Game of the Year, God of War. As a Nintendo fan, I've sort of had an aversion to the slow cinematic style of games Sony tends to make, but what really made me change my mind on that was God of War. Right off the bat, all my ideas about the gameplay being unpolished or bland, just wrong. Combat has so much effort put into it, and so does the story, which I think might just be one of my favorite stories in video game ever. And there's next to no disconnect between that story and the gameplay. It's perfect, really. This game has the power to make any Nintendo simp love Sony games. Honorable mentions are Celeste, Spider-Man, and Smash Ultimate. Moving on again, we've got 2019. Not too many big video game releases, so it's easy for me to pick my number one. That would be Fire Emblem Three Houses. You know how in the Undertale section I said I don't typically like replaying games? I've replayed this game 3 times, which is not enough if you ask me. I think the biggest strength of this game would first be the gameplay. I really like tactical RPGs, and I think Three Houses does an excellent job at making their gameplay approachable while keeping what's good about them. Second biggest strength of this game would be the story. It's complicated and sad and has a lot of sides to it, which is actually explored in a really mature way. It acknowledges that war sometimes isn't preventable and is necessary to end the tragic state of the world. There are also many sides to it and everything. Sorry I can't go too detailed on specifics for the story of this game, given the grand scale of it. That would take a lot of time, but my point is, all around, amazing game. Alright, almost done here. We got 2020, and my pick is gonna be something you probably won't expect. Crash Bandicoot 4. I played the Insane Trilogy before 4 came out and thought it was alright, but decided to get 4 when it came out later on for whatever reason. The platforming is better than anything in the trilogy combined, and it might not be anything fancy, but it's some of the best in a 3D platformer, which shows us 3D platformers don't really need to be these huge collectathons to be amazing games. What I really like about this game, though, is the writing. Not what you'd expect to be my favorite part of Crash Bandicoot, but it's just so funny and I really love it. It feels like a cartoon in the best way possible. This may be the type of game you ignore or write off because it doesn't have too much going on, but believe me, it's amazing. Also, a guy says bastard in it as an insult, which implies there's some sort of stigma against sex before marriage in the Crash Bandicoot universe. 2020 didn't have too many games I played, and the trend pretty much continues to the next year. But when there is a game I played, yeah, it's amazing. Metroid Dread, Resident Evil Village, Deltarune Chapter 2. Okay, but there's no way I would continue my strange Undertale metaphor into Deltarune, right? There's no way I could extend it that long. And Deltarune Chapter 2 is like reconnecting with the person you love years later, and it's everything you could ever want. Get along perfectly, and you enjoy yourself, and you just wish it could last forever. You vow what you did in the past won't repeat itself, but you keep remembering it, it always gets to you. But you won't ever do it again, right? That brings us to 2022. King of Fighters 15, I guess. Yeah, I haven't played too many 2022 games, so KOF 15 kind of wins by default. Despite me being incredibly zoomer, I love old boomer fighting games, and I'm a huge fan of the King of Fighters series. I got KOF 15 day one, and I have mixed feelings on it. The base combat is as good as KOF has ever been, and I really like a lot of the picks they made. But in general, the game just doesn't feel like much has changed. I don't see what the point is, because it feels like KOF 14 again with some slight differences. Of course, that's exactly what the foundation of KOF is, and this exact same thing has been going on since 95, but given SNK no longer does one per year, it just doesn't work that much anymore. I wish KOF had more direction to it. What I'm saying is this: the slogan of KOF 15 was shatter all expectations. I love the game, but it did not shatter all my expectations. The only other game I really enjoyed this year so far would be Multiversus, so that's my honorable mention. Well, sorry for ending this video on such a downer note, but I guess I just needed to be a contrarian to King of Fighters 15. Anyways, it's been fun to see how my favorite games each year have changed, and honestly how I've changed each year. I hope I get to play so many more great games as the years go by, and maybe a better game for 2022. With that, I want to thank you so much for watching this attempt at my first ever YouTube video. I know there wasn't much direction, so hopefully in a future video I can go more in details on those games I love. Hope you have a great day. See ya.